Watch all these guys come online. Welcome to Dr. Paul Mental Health Mondays. We're going to kick this right off real quick. Let's get these devices all going, and so we can have our conversation. I love to be here with you every Monday, so we can have Mental Health Mondays. So let's. All right, Mental Health Mondays. Wow, it's been a week, and it will always be a week. A week of introducing things to a process, introducing things to what's going on. This is Mental Health Mondays. We are live on Instagram, and we are live on YouTube and Twitter, and you can always catch the podcast again on iHeart and iTunes Radio. So welcome to Mental Health Mondays. So we got some things to talk about. We always have some things to talk about on Mondays, but I also want to do some informational conversation with you. Wednesdays at 7:30, we also have Voices to be Heard. Now, if you don't know what Voices to be Heard is, it's a format that you can actually call in, and so you can have your voices to be heard. We are talking about abuse. Tamara Randolph is the co-host, and we are hosting those live. So if you have any questions, at all, just please type it into the inbox, and I will read them and ask anything at all on Mental Health Mondays. Any questions? So I got a couple formats that are asking questions at the same time. I just want to let you know you can just ask, and that will also be helpful, please. Because Mental Health Mondays isn't that about what I think, it's about your understanding. And your understanding is important because we tend to misunderstand things. I was writing down a couple of notes this week about misinterpretation and misunderstanding. And does that make sense? If you don't understand, how is it a double negative? Because if you don't understand, it's a negative. How do you misunderstand something? You either understand something or you don't understand something, right? But there's a lot of power in the things that we thought was something. There's a lot of power in the things we thought was something. And there was a phrase that came out that I saw, and it said, manage your emotions. And it threw me off the rail about what it means to manage your emotions. Because you don't manage your emotions. Your emotions are not a herd of cats. It takes a training. It takes a practice. You can understand the origin of your emotions. You can understand the reasons why you've developed this particular emotion. And feelings are just something that are felt, right? And so the difference between emotions and feelings, they're two worlds apart. They can come together. I can feel something, so then it creates an emotion, right? An emotion's an action, right? An emotion. So that's why you can say, if you're angry, it's not about your emotions, it's about what you're doing with them, right? So if you're doing something with them, if you're doing something against them, because we have internal emotions and we have external actions. Now, if I bring this back into the martial arts and the martial sciences, and there's different healing sciences that people do. The yoga, martial sciences, the reason why it's considered a science, it has always been a science, is because it involves you understanding others, right? So it's not just like, if you do this, you get that. A science is an application that is filtered through how you are doing and what you're doing. Share to, yes. I don't know. One of my formats is, I don't know why it's, there's a problem with the recording. Well, I'll worry about that later and upload that later. So, if you don't understand the difference between emotions and feelings. We'll get to that later. But managing your emotions, you cannot do. They're not a herd of cats. They're not cows. They're not something you could just wrangle up and say, you behave, you do that, right? Now, when it comes to the science of emotions, right, and that's really where I feel things are lacking. We have talked about many things, how things are bad in this pandemic. But they were always something. It wasn't just now that grew. There was always something. And in that something had an origin of where that seed was. And if you don't understand where that seed is planted and how it is growing within you. For instance, what if you get angry from someone cutting you off? If you're getting angry for someone to cut you off, where does that stem from? Now, we have called it road rage, we have called it, people are just too hyper, but there's a reason why you are physically upset at someone cutting you off. What is that process? Because the process is easy to figure out why you chemically, because once your brain gets into something, remember your mind and your brain are two different things. So once you physically get into something, you're dumping chemical responses. And your body is now going to react with that chemical dump that you put into your body. And the information. And that's what the dendrites are, right? When it comes to neurons and sympathetic pathways. So when you talk about how the signal is moved through chemically and vibrationally, chemically and vibrational, it sends those signals to those cells, and then those cells are formulating, and then you have what you call, it keeps layering that information. That information is something you give it. You, being the mind, has now given it an information to the brain to do something. And in that brain, now your body's chemically reacting, and now you're hostile, you're angry, you're sweating. You could be furious, you could be anything. It doesn't matter now what that is. But if you don't understand the origin of the mind, in your own personal mind, and just going over, asking yourself, when I feel this way, where did this feeling come from? How did I develop this feeling? So many times, and this is simple, right? We have nature versus nurture. But what's in the nature and what's in the nurture? And what nature meaning an environment, and nurture means something that was given to you. All those has nothing to do with you and what you're developing. It has very little to do with you have learned to develop. Because until you take the process, your self-process of understanding your own information that you're feeding to the brain, then you're always going, those chemical reactions and how you're going to fight or be furious or to misinterpret, you're going to always, quote, fly off the handle. Okay? And then flying off the handle comes from what source? So we all come from a source, right? We do. We're born from a source. We are developed from a source. But once we are now in this environment, in this world, on this plane, that information is being fed to us. You're being fed something that you're not. Because if you were drinking at one time, you become an alcoholic, you say, well, my family's an alcoholic. So that's why I'm an alcoholic. Well, okay, that's not true, but what about Dr. Paul, what about the gene? Now, we have genes inside of us that can be triggered by ... right? But if it's never triggered, how do you know what you are? Because we have a genetic triggers and we have a genetic responses to certain things. Certain healthy things, certain unhealthy things. Certain things in our body are affected by the things we ingest, right? Okay, well that's just food. What if you're ingesting thoughts? That is also a sickness. The ingestion of thoughts is a sickness Because now, can you hear something without ingesting it? Yes, you can. You can actually smell a donut without gaining weight, right? And I know people use it as a joke. I'm around sugar and I just blow up. Okay, but smelling it is different than eating it, right? Even though smelling does trigger a chemical reaction. It does trigger electronic pathways. But it does not enter your body. It triggers that chemical which develops a brain which sends an impulse for you wanting to eat. And that's that pleasure. It sends an impulse of you wanting to eat. You don't have to eat because you're still a choice. And that's where the mind comes in. When we have misinterpretation, and it goes back to the information. Information, it is something you just take in. You then can alter it, obviously, because people can say something, you can actually hear something completely different, and that depends on the state of positioning you're in, of why you're altering it. But when we use words and phrases that actually has its own meaning, and we use it for a phrase or colloquial term, like, man, if I change the word shitty into man, that's just shitty, and it means good, because that's what I want it to mean. The definition of shitty still has a negative connotation to it inside the body. So there's different things being picked up, not just by your words, but by the vibration of the word, by the electrical impulse it creates within the body. Those cells have feelings. They have reactions to things that's going on. Let's see something. I don't know if you can see this. See if I can bring this up. So, when we talk about different parts that are happening in the brain, and let me just move this over down a bit so you can see. Okay? So, when we have all these different signals, right, and these dendrites, I need another marker. And I thought I had a marker. Okay, so these dendrites, they work off electronic pulses, right? Chemical, and they're the ones who has the signals. So if these are neurons, right, and they're the ones traveling, getting the information, and these are all the stuff that's in the brain. In the brain, but the mind interprets. And this, to me, is where the problem often is. It's the interpretation of what is going on. It is the interpretation. It is mostly built off of things that people taught you, that brought you in, things that was brought to you. Now, remember, these neurons, these dendrites, and it goes through the chemical and electromagnetic wave. That's how these guys get information. Okay, so if this is inside the brain, right? And you got these neurons snapping all over the place. And this is before it gets into, I'm in the body and I just feel sick and I just feel nauseous. But when it gets into the mind, and we have, and if it interprets, and these are just, the brain is just a receiver and a transmitter, then what are we interpreting? The words that we're interpreting, the words that we're using, not just for others, but for ourselves. Not just for others, but for ourselves. Because the words we use have a chemical and an electromagnetic effect in our body. It has no choice, because that's what picks up that's what the cells use to communicate. Is using your mind, to get the information it needs inside the body to communicate with the body through cells. Now, something can be ingested in you. Something foreign can be ingested in you. But a lot of the times when things are brought to you, it's you to make a decision. It's only you to make a decision. Because for then, it's just information. There's nothing more to it. It's just an information without interpretation. Information without interpretation. Once we have information without interpretation, then you have clear. You have your thoughts. Because anything that you interpret, or you will interpret, comes from something that was taught to you. This is a marker because someone told me it was a marker. It was not my interpretation. It was given to me to say this was a marker. I didn't grow up naming this, knowing this, and it was taught to me. So it brought in, so now it is in part of my information. Right? But what if I was also taught that certain colors mean certain things? Like a red mark on a test paper means bad, and a green check means good. We start to define so many things that we end up boxing ourselves into a construct. And on Mental Health Mondays, to break free from constructs, it is an understanding of a process of your practice for you not to misinterpret something. Because information, that's all it is. Once you start interpreting it, then it's a little bit more. Knowing how the body's reacting to it. Knowing how the organs are reacting to it. Because your body is telling you stuff. Your spirit and your soul are joined. They have been moving throughout time in the universe forever. The genetic structure is part of you, but your soul and your spirit within has an attachment to this physical form you call a body. It is important. It has an importance. But if you don't know what your interpretation is in your own mind, then you're causing sickness without even knowing it. Okay, am I giving you a pass for something not being your fault? We could do things that causes disturbance. Absolutely. And we often do things that causes a disturbance. Here's the question, right? Why? Where does the disturbance come from? What's the origin of your disturbance? To practice clearing the mind and to settling and being quiet. Even through death and sickness and money and so many things. How do we quiet our own minds so we can hear what our thoughts are saying? What our information is creating in our mind, the interpretation in our mind. Because if everything that comes in is information, then what is the interpretation? Let me write that a little better. So if everything's information, then what's the interpretation, and how is my mind recognizing it? You see, we have taken so much power away from you that it is now being controlled by different factions. Either someone trying to get you to do something, or someone's trying to get you away from something. But it's never. But so, what is your decision? Why is someone trying to drive you to, and what is someone trying to drive you away? And it has nothing to do with you. It has more to do with their own personal sickness or their own personal stances. Because when you decide in your own mind, when you make your decision that this is for you, what's for you, then other people's thoughts and promises is their sickness. When we talk about information in the neurons and the sympathetic pathways that can form once it keeps getting layered over and over and over again, that's what we know as habits. Okay? And those habits can be hurtful if it's from trying to get you to avoid something. Okay? Avoidance is a sickness. But a choice is not. But once you choose what it is that you are and where you're wanting to go and who you are, then you're not avoiding anything. When it comes to that time, you will face it. Not when someone else tells you. Now, of course, we live in a world when the stop sign says stop, we stop. We can't say, well, I just don't feel like stopping. I mean, there is a balance of social living that we really must adhere to. But a lot of this is a sickness that we are being misinformed of our own personal interpretation. Someone is constantly trying to tell you what you are and what you're not, what you need and what you don't, who you are and what you should be, who you should vote for or who you shouldn't vote for. It's quite sad, I feel, that people have lost relationships over political candidates. Lost relationships over political candidates. You can have amazing disagreements and conversations and pontificate all what you want about something. But if you lose a relationship over it, then that's a question about not the relationship, because that's not it. It's a question of what was that relationship for anyway? What was the use of that information or that person in your life if it can be discarded so easily? Compassion is a process that has to be trained. It just doesn't fall out of the sky. Compassion doesn't fall out of the sky. Compassion is developed through a practice. There's many practices out there that can develop your compassion. And it has a process of removing yourself from being involved in the process. To clear thyself is to know thyself, is to give thyself. To clear thyself is to know thyself, is to give thyself. So you have to clear all the things that you think you are to know who you are, so you're able to give who you are. I guess does that not make sense? Clearing yourself, meaning taking away all the constructs. That's what I mean by clearing yourself. Taking away all the things that was built for you to be a black man, certain height, this way, being able to do this, do that, a woman, whatever. All these things that you're supposed to be categorized, with these opinions and ideas. Because really, they're just information. And then to know thyself, how am I interpreting it? Right? What am I interpreting? What is the reason am I interpreting this? For my own mental health's sake, I need to know that I develop these interpretations to help me defend myself, help me protect myself. So these are all trap doors for your little safety. Is that why I develop these interpretations? And then when you get to the mind, The true mind, after you clear it, understand your interpretations, then you can give. Then you can give of yourself. And giving of yourself is not giving all of yourself. Because if you are empty, there's nothing for you to give. And if you are blocked by multitude of interpretations, there's nothing for you to give anyway. Because what you're giving is all what someone gave you. So it's not even really you, right? You're giving me something that your, older generation taught you. Like, this is just how we do it. Those words don't apply. When you are in development and cultivation, this is just how I do it, doesn't apply. This is just what I'm used to, doesn't apply. This is just what I'm good at, doesn't apply. Because those things aren't you. They're the interpretation of you. I'd like to say thank you all for joining me on Mental Health Mondays. We will always talk about the brain and emotion and the reaction to it. I know there's a lot of reaction going out here, and there's a lot of reasons for us to stay safe. I want you to please stay safe. I want you to please wear your mask, keep washing your hands, keep your social distancing, and get out the vote, right? Please, vote, right? These are just something we should just be doing. And be civically engaged in our system. Don't just stand by and stand back. Be involved. That's what you gotta do. You have to be involved. So get out to vote. Vote for your judges and learn how to vote for your local representation, your school board. All those things are so important. So please get out to vote. Wednesdays, like I said, we do have 7:30. We have a call-in talk show, and our number is 1-888. What is that number? Oh my God, 1-888-240-8466. It's the number to call in for the call-in show called Voices to Be Heard. And this is about abuse. This is about talking about abuse. This is about, abuse is hidden by so many different factors, and we'll talk about that Wednesday. Wednesday at 7:30, me and Tamara Randolph and myself. You can please call this call, 1-888-240-8466. It's a call-in talk show. Any questions about this and mental health that we want to talk about, want to go over? I know I get into the brain science sometimes a little bit because I get so excited. Because the reason why brain science is so exciting to me is because people don't know how they're being really affected by the things that are going on. Healing takes time. Mourning takes time. I know my family's in mourning. I know there's deaths in my family. I know there's things that just happened recently, and we will take our time to mourn. We will take our time to mourn. And mourning is not something you just get over and get to. It just takes time. So allow yourself to mourn. Allow yourself to mourn the deaths of our brothers and our nephew, and the people who have passed on from different sicknesses and COVID itself. There's things that you lost, and then there's time to move forward. We will move forward. We will move forward. Some people want to stay stuck in the past, and that is also a sickness. Okay? You cannot get back something that has gone. You can only move forward. Okay? I wish you all good luck. Stay healthy, stay exercising, practice your mental health. If you need mental health help, please reach out, call somebody, talk to someone, because I guarantee you, I think everyone is being traumatized by so many things, and let a therapist tell you that you're okay. You don't need anyone. That's the greatest health you can have. Have someone just tell you that you're okay. But seek out mental health, okay? God bless everyone, and have everyone good night. Let's end this.